You're welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, still under the capital structure debate, we are going to talk about the neoclassical school of thought, into brackets position. And this was thought by two people, which is Modiglian and Mira, who argued that the capital structure debate is just a mere detail. They argued that you cannot affect the value of the firm simply by the way you finance its assets. So they are arguing their view is against the traditional school of thought. Under the traditional school of thought, they told us that you can affect the value of the firm by the way you finance it. But in the neoclassical theory, they're telling us you cannot affect the value of the firm simply by the way you finance it. So they argued that the value of the firm comes from the asset that the firm has invested in, hence the asset mix, which is a function of the investment decision. So these two people believed in the investment decision or the capital budgeting decision and not in the financing decision. So they believe that the financing decision is irrelevant. And once an investment is made, cash flows are generated. So they said once the investment decision is made, value will be generated through cash flows, which wealth is conserved and when created cannot be altered by the financing decision. So they argued that the investment decision will generate cash flows and those cash flows will create wealth, and wealth cannot be altered by the financing decision. And that was their argument about the capital structure debate. And this is the graph according to the neoclassical school of thought. The y-axis represents the overall cost of capital and the x-axis represents the leverage level. The neoclassical school of thought also has assumptions. First, it assumes that there are many buyers and sellers of securities, such that no single buyer or seller can single-handedly affect the prices of the securities. Then it assumes that securities are completely divisible. It assumes that securities can be split into sections to make them more affordable. They also assume that there are no transaction costs. Transaction costs refers to those expenses that are incurred when you're buying a good or service, like the money that you pay to a broker. So that they assume that with the investment decision, there are no transaction costs. There is also an assumption that there are no taxes paid, both personal and corporate taxes. They also assume that investors are rational because they base their decisions on the concept of risk and return. It assumes that there are no bankruptcy costs. Bankruptcy costs are those costs that a firm has to incur when it fails to meet its financial obligations. And we have things like court costs, lawyer costs. So they believe that with the investment decision, you will not incur the bankruptcy costs. And then they believe that investors or individuals borrow at a risk-free rate. That was all about the neoclassical school of thought. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share with your friends, and watch my next video. We shall be talking about the sources of financing, both the short term and long term.